Another big game, another big-time performance from Bryce Miller. The Mariners officially hold the tiebreaker over the Astros and stay alive at least another day longer in the playoff race. Let's talk about it. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Ahoy, sailors. It is Tuesday, September 24th, 2024. This is Tony Gonzalez and Colby Patnode for the Locked On Mariners podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On today's show, we'll give you our takeaways from the Mariners' 6-1 win over the Astros last night. We'll also take a look at the updated playoff race, and then we'll go over tonight's matchup in Game 2 of this 3-game set down in Houston. But before we do that, shout out to our title sponsor today, Booking.com. Booking.yeah. The right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your baseball rivals. Book today on Booking.com, the official accommodation partner of Major League Baseball, and get the Booking.com app today. And if you want to hear from me and Colby even more and help support the show, check out our Patreon. The link in the description, and you can sign up for a free 7-day trial. Bryce Miller is a bad man, folks. After a great start against the Yankees his last time out, he goes 7 strong in this one. 5 strikeouts, 2 walks, just 2 hits against him. No runs, quite a few hard hit balls, but no damage done to him by this Astros lineup whatsoever, which, of course, is missing Yordan Alvarez for this entire series, but still very dangerous with Jose Altuve, Kyle Tucker, Alex Bregman, Yainer Diaz, etc., etc., etc. You get the point. This was a very impressive start for Miller. And it was really cool, too. His grandfather got to see him pitch in person for the first time ever. Really cool story about that from Adam Jude of the Seattle Times, if you haven't checked that out. So a great night for Miller. And the biggest game of the year up to this point for the M's. So, Colby, what did you think about his night? And was this the best we've seen Miller, given the circumstances around this game?
Best stuff-wise, probably not. Best performance of his career when you consider the circumstances and all that stuff, probably. It's easy to look at the 6-1 final score and think that, the Mariners cruised to this one, but it was 1-0 for a vast majority of this game. At one point, it was 2-0, and it looked like that was pretty much all you were going to get.
That was the highest lead that Miller had when he was on the bump, was 2-0.
Right, and so Miller just cruised for most of the night. After 6, he had only allowed 2 base runners on 1 hit, and the 1 hit was an infield single. So it looked like he was going to cruise, and then he ran into a little bit of danger in the 7th inning. First couple guys get on, then there's a swinging bunt. Miller kind of messes up the play a little bit. He immediately looks to third, not understanding where Dylan Moore's playing in the shift, and then he doesn't have time to try and get the force out at second. They could have had a shot at a double play, but gets the out at first. Now runners on second and third, just 1 out. So a little bit of a miscue there. And you're kind of sitting there going, eesh, like a base hit probably ties this thing up. And Houston has all the momentum. They have all the reason in the world to try and win this game. So things are definitely going to tilt towards Houston at that point. And obviously that little league ballpark, you can hit a routine fly ball into left field and all of a sudden you're down 3-2. So it was, Miller needed to step up, and Dan gave him the opportunity to pitch out of that jam, and he did. He got 2 strikeouts. He only had 5 strikeouts on the night, but 2 of them came with the game on the line after a pretty lengthy at-bat with, was it Carantini, I believe, before he struck him out. And then he took care of Jeremy Pena on 4 pitches, and, that's 7 innings when you're pretty gassed. You're at the end of a long season. You're at 90-plus pitches at this point. Your season's very much on the line. And for Bryce Miller to go out there and just, come up with these big strikeouts certainly speaks to the type of mental toughness that Bryce has, and just kind of the sense of the moment that Bryce has. So, yeah, it was a great night for him. 20 whiffs overall on the night, only 5 strikeouts. But 20 whiffs overall. And it was a pretty fun night. Once you get past the stressfulness of it, like it'd be a fun rewatch, now knowing the outcome and not having to sweat out every single pitch. But he gets credited with throwing 7 different pitches in last night's game. So it was a lot of fun to watch Bryce, and Bryce is slowly but surely creeping his way up the depth chart, or the whatever
The
you want to
tier
call
ranking.
it. Yeah, like he's getting closer to the top, and I think it's fair to say he's one of, if not the most underrated pitchers in baseball for what he's done this year. I don't think people quite understand just how impressive and how good Bryce Miller has been this year, and what is just his sophomore season and his first full season in the big leagues. And he's, in theory right now, he's lined up to start game 162, which could mean something. It could mean nothing.
I hate those words.
Yeah, but it probably means nothing, but it could be the biggest game of the year again, and Miller would be the guy who takes the ball, and I think that's probably who you would want to take the ball. So,
I mean, like we talked about a few days ago, he's been their best pitcher since the All-Star break. Like statistically, like there isn't really even much of an argument on that front. And now, he threw 151 innings last year between AA and the majors. This year he's at 180 and a third. 8.53 Ks per nine, 2.25 walks per nine, 2.94 ERA now. 3.58 FIP, 2.8 F4, and 31 starts he's posted. He's been great more often than not. And as we've talked about in the past, he has taken his game to another level. Right, he's starting to really transform himself into a complete pitcher.
Right. I tweeted this out last night just to try and give people a picture of how good Bryce Miller has been. Here's the list of pitchers in baseball this year who have thrown more innings than Bryce Miller and have a lower ERA than his 2.94. Tariq Skubal, Zach Wheeler. That's it.
Yeah,
that's it. Now, Chris Sale and Corbin Burns are probably going to get there. Burns' ERA is 2.95, and Sale only needs 2 1/3 innings. But any way you want to slice it, when you really think about what pitching is, it's about getting as many outs as you can while allowing the fewest number of runs that you can. And very few people in baseball, regardless of how it happens, have done that better than Bryce Miller this year. The dude is truly worthy of some down ballot Cy Young votes. He's not going to get them. And I'm not saying he should be the Cy Young. Obviously, it should be Skubal. And Burns is probably second. But is he worthy of those like 10th, 11th place votes? Sure, he is. Because, again, the essence of pitching, get as many outs as you can while surrendering the fewest runs that you can. And at the end of the day, any way you want to slice it, the way it's looking right now, the only American League pitchers who will have done a better job of that than Bryce Miller will be Tariq Skubal, Corbin Burns, and maybe Seth Lugo.
It's incredible.
Miller is tragically underrated right now. And I think the conversation that we have about the Mariners needing to trade a pitcher for some offense this year, you can go ahead and take Bryce Miller and Brian Wu off of that list, off of that conversation. And but Bryce Miller is a guy who I don't even know if we've seen the ceiling for him yet. I think there's still more strikeouts that he can go get. Miller has been spectacular this year. He's been tragically underrated, not only by the national media folks, but probably by people in Seattle. I mean, when we do our team awards at the end of the year, Bryce Miller is going to be one of the, he's probably the Cy Young of this team. If we want to be honest, he's just been the most consistent all year. So, as great as Logan's been, as good as George has been overall, been a rough go the last couple weeks, and as great as the run as Brian Wu had last month, it's just been Bryce. It's just been so consistently good all year that he's probably the staff ace right now, which is kind of terrifying because, again, we haven't seen him at his best, but also we haven't seen Logan Gilbert and George Kirby at their best, or Brian Wu yet, for that matter. So it is a very good rotation, and Bryce Miller is just a underrated, underappreciated part of that right now.
100%. And Jose Altuve talked about it last night after the game, saying, quote, he was obviously throwing the 2-seam, 4-seam fastballs. It seems like wherever he wants. He had the split, the slider. So he was doing really good today. Sometimes, like I always say, you have to tip your hat. He was almost unhittable today. And like I tweeted last night, and you just talked about it a little bit, the list of players that I would trade Bryce Miller for is incredibly small, and the names that are on it, probably not realistic. So we're going to look at where things stand here in the playoff race in just a moment. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into an MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Again, that is ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. You can catch all the action between the Mariners and the Astros tonight on the Mariners hometown broadcast with SiriusXM via the SXM app. All you have to do to find that is search the word Mariners. All right, so let's look at the playoff standings, Colby.
We must.
Hey, they're still alive technically.
They won't do us the dignity of dying already.
Right. The Tigers, I believe, are up on the Rays right now.
Yep.
2-0. Heading into the ninth inning. So
you're going to be 3 games back at them with 5 to play. You're not catching them.
Yeah, no, the Tigers, because they're playing the White Sox at the end of the season. That's over. That's over to me. So right now, my focus is really, look, you have the tiebreaker of the Astros, but you have to go undefeated the rest of the way, and you're still going to need help from Cleveland. Even after that.
Yeah, you have to win the next 2, and then Cleveland has to win at least 2 of their 3 games, and you have to sweep Oakland. And sweeping Oakland is no picnic. Yeah. All right, Oakland's playing good ball in the second half, so yeah, you have to win out, and so you have to go 5-0. The Astros have to go. What would that be then? They would have to go 1-4.
Yeah,
for you to catch them. Possible, sure, but not really.
Sure. So right. Yeah, like the division is mathematically possible, right? But sure. Right now, again, my focus is solely on the Royals and the Twins. So you are half a game behind the Twins because Twins didn't play last night. Neither did the Royals. Neither did the Tigers last night. You were the only like playoff or wild card contender that actually played last night. Obviously, you have to be. Well, at this point right now, 1.5 games better than them because you don't have the tiebreaker. You have to be 2.5 games better than the Royals because you also don't have the tiebreaker over them. So you have the day off on Thursday. Both of those teams play, so we'll see in which way the half game swings. But you look at the schedules right now. Not an easy road for either team. The Twins play the Marlins starting today. Marlins are kind of annoying, but I wouldn't assume that you're going to get much, if any, help from them, despite how poorly the Twins have played recently. But the Twins wrap up the season on the weekend against the Orioles, who, of course, didn't help you this past weekend against the Tigers, but still, it's the Orioles. The Orioles are a really good baseball team, so you should be able to get some help from them on that front. But again, you not only need help with regards to the Twins, because the Twins are just the leapfrog team right now, right? You get past them, but you don't get past the Royals. It doesn't really matter. You're in the same place that you're in right now, which is outside of the playoffs. The Royals, it's really interesting. So they're playing the Nationals. The Nationals, of course, just sent down CJ Abrams because he was out late at a casino and all this stuff. But they're still kind of an annoying team. Still have a lot of talent on that roster, even without CJ Abrams. So it's possible. And the Royals have lost 7 in a row, and they've looked awful. So it's possible the Royals might find a way to just beat themselves, right? And then on the weekend, they're playing the Braves, which is a fascinating series just if you're a baseball fan in general, because that series potentially has playoff ramifications for not just those two teams, but for both leagues, right? For both the AL and the NL wildcard races. Tons of craziness being set up here for the final few days of the season, whether or not it pertains to the Mariners. But that's obviously not going to be a walk in the park for the Royals going up against that Braves team, which is going to be desperate to try and make the playoffs. So there's a shot here. There's a real shot when you consider who these two teams are playing, how poorly they both played recently. But it goes back to what I said on this show, I don't know, 11, 12 days ago when I was on my own. I think these teams are going to give the Mariners an opportunity. It's just, can the Mariners actually get out of their own way? Can the Mariners actually take advantage of it?
Sure. Guess we're about to find out, but to put that into layman's terms, you're not catching Houston. You're not catching Detroit. You need to win one more game than Minnesota down the stretch to leapfrog them. You need to win two more games than Kansas City. So if you go 4-1, after tonight, well, the Mariners are going to have one more game than those two teams until Thursday. But entering yesterday, they all had 6 games to go, right? So if you go 5-1 and you've got one of those wins in the bag, then Minnesota has to go 3-3, and Kansas City has to go 2-4.
Yep.
So if you go 6-0, if you win these last 5 games, since you've got that one in your back pocket, Kansas City would have to go 4-2 to beat you, and Minnesota would have to go 5-1. 5-1 to beat you. So if you win 4 of these next 5, it could happen. If you win if you win all 5 of them, then it's probably going to come down to, you win the next 4, it's going to come down to that Sunday, probably, almost certainly, where all the teams have first pitch at the same time, and we all get to play everybody's favorite game, scoreboard watch, while you watch the game in front of you.
And Colby's going to be in T-Mobile Park again to witness the disappointment for the millionth time over the last decade.
2016.
Yep.
2021, 2023. Yeah. I just
when we had Jerry on the show, I can't remember if it was this most recent time, earlier this year, if it was last year.
It was this winter.
You literally mentioned this to him.
Yeah. I've been in the ballpark for there's a decent probability that the Mariners will enter the final weekend of the series still alive, or weekend of the season, still alive, be eliminated. And that would be, 2016, 2021, 23,
2014,
24. That would be the 4th time in the Jerry Dipoto era.
Oh yeah.
That they have been alive on the last weekend of the regular season and not gotten in. 4 times.
Yeah.
Now you might want to look at that and be like, oh, well, they've been in it so many times. That's great. And it's like, no, it's not. It's not actually. It sucks.
But eventually you get into this scenario so many times. One time, could it actually swing in your favor?
Yeah, it never has.
I know it never has, but eventually, you would think the stars would align eventually in that scenario.
Yeah. The Mariners, the year they made the playoffs, 2022, they clinched their playoff spot with about 4 games left at that point. So it wasn't one of those it's 161 and we're sweating it. No, it hasn't happened. So yeah, in the last 10 years, it's shaping up. Now we'll see. They could get swept these last 2 games in Houston. It might not matter, but right now it's shaping up to be another for the 5th time in 10 years. The Mariners will go into the final series of the year with a mathematical possibility to make the playoffs, only to be eliminated in either game 160, 161, or 162. And as somebody who has been there for all 4 of the previous times, I'm gearing up to be there for the 5th time and to be bitterly disappointed again, because the scoreboard's not going to swing their way. And we'll be sitting here looking at a Mariners team that will have done something like win, 16 of their last 22 and be like, oh, well, it turns out they needed to win 17 of their last 22. But oh man, they just didn't have any opportunities like against the Yankees, or like when they had a 5-run lead against a bad Rangers lineup.
Well, I mean, here's the crazy thing. If you had just held on to that lead in Kauffman Stadium all those months ago, right, when they were up, what was it, 10-2 or whatever, or 9-2, and they lost 10-9, right? We would feel a hell of a lot better about their chances right now, because you would actually have the tiebreaker over the Royals.
Mm-hmm. Well, that, and you'd be just a half game back.
So there are so many moments that you can point to over the course of the season where,
I mean, pick the most frustrating loss, and you get to point to that one and say that's what cost them the playoffs. I was justifiably upset because that loss cost them the playoffs. So whether it's the Rangers series finale on Sunday, or the Yankees, the blown leads, or it's the home run to Javi Baez, or it's the Parker Meadows robbing Cal Raleigh, like pick your most frustrating moment of the year, and you get to point to that and be like, that's what cost them. So yeah, and sadly, as Mariner fans, we get to do that a lot. In fact, gearing up to be 5 times in 10 years, we get to do that little song and dance. So yippee, it's gonna be awesome.
Colby's very excited to go to the ballpark this weekend.
It's just
could not tell.
First of all, I am excited because it's the last chance to go to T-Mobile for like 6 months. So it's always good. But yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, I know how this movie's going to end, and yet I'm paying the money to go watch it over and over and over again. But anyways, just to put a bow on this conversation, you need to win 1 more game than Minnesota the rest of the year. You need to win 2 more games than Kansas City the rest of the year. That is your path to making the playoffs. Then that's all there is.
I mean, hear me out on this, Colby. They do wrap up the season against the Oakland Athletics.
Mm-hmm. They do indeed.
Cal Raleigh is likely to play in that series, Colby.
Yeah, now, we'll see.
What was the guy's name? Acevedo?
Yeah, he's not there anymore.
Is it Domingo Acevedo? Yeah. He's not a part of that ball club anymore.
No. I just watched that, by the way, this morning.
Nice.
The Cal home run. Yeah.
So I'm not saying anything here, but I am saying Cal Raleigh is going to send the Mariners to the playoffs again this weekend.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. All that needs to happen is that the Royals will need to have lost 10 of their last 13 games for that to be possible. And they're halfway there. I mean, they're more than halfway there. So we'll see. But again, obviously, you lose tonight. It's curtains on the division. And then it's basically you need more help than is reasonable to expect from Washington to kind of stay alive there. But, we'll see. Every time we think that'll do it for the Mariners, the rest of the wild card contenders just kind of go like, no, we're going to suck too. So.
All right. So now that we've talked about that, now that we've gone over the playoff scenarios here, let's talk about what's right in front of the Mariners. That's game 2 of this series. Logan Gilbert going up against Framber Valdez. Talk about that in just a moment. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by both Booking.com and FanDuel. Explore those U.S. cities you always secretly wanted to learn more about. With hotels, bed and breakfast, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more on Booking.com, you might just find your perfect stay even in your baseball rival city during the postseason. Even an Orioles fan or a Guardians fan can have a good time in New York no matter what happens on the diamond this October. You can drown your playoff woes with a New York slice or celebrate advancing to the next round with a delicious chopped cheese, all while taking in the autumn vibes in Manhattan and capping it all off with a great stay in the city. Booking.com delivers exactly the right U.S. stay for you, and the right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your baseball rivals. Booking.com, booking.yeah. NFL fans can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets. Yeah, you heard that right. $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Once again, you can catch all the action between the Mariners and the Astros tonight on the Mariners hometown broadcast with SiriusXM via the SXM app. All you have to do to find that is search the word Mariners. So, Logan Gilbert against Framber Valdez. It's been a weird second half for Logan Gilbert, Colby. What are your hopes here? What are your expectations? What's your confidence level right now heading into the start for Logan?
If Logan Gilbert doesn't throw a perfect game, he's a bum.
Oh,
those are my expectations.
High standards.
Well, considering how up and down he's been in the second half, I think I've earned the right to demand more from him.
Sure.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see because obviously Framber has been incredible in the second half of this season. And the Mariners, we know what their game plan is going to be, right? It's been the same against Framber for the last couple of years. They're going to be aggressive early in counts. They're going to try and get him up in the zone a little bit. And we know that they're not going to want to try. They're not going to sit around and try to hit with two strikes against Framber Valdez. They are going to swing the bat early. They're not going to worry about, trying to drive up his pitch count to get him out of this game. They think they can do damage on Framber early in counts. And so that has been their game plan really for the last couple of years. And at times it's worked fantastic. And at times it's been troublesome, right? But for the most part, they tend to find a way to grind out a couple runs against Framber Valdez.
He's going to walk you. He's going to give you opportunities.
Right. So they're going to be aggressive when he's in the strike zone, but they have to be careful that doesn't, that doesn't lead to you expanding the zone too much. You want to keep him in the zone, but when he throws strikes, you want to hit him, right? You want to swing at those pitches. So, it'll be interesting to see how they handle that. And obviously based on what, how the Mariners attack Framber, it's going to be interesting to see, it'll dictate what Logan Gilbert needs to do, because at the end of the day, all that really matters is that Logan Gilbert needs to give up fewer runs than Framber Valdez. Like, that's my only hope. That's my only expectation. I don't care how he does it. I don't care if it's, the luckiest start of his career where the Mariners defense is just playing out of their minds. I don't care if he's, carving up dudes and getting 3 outs on 12 pitches every single inning. That'd be great. But at the end of the day, Logan has to be better than Framber Valdez. There are two pitchers that I would say are in the same tier. Like they're right there. They're not quite aces, but they can be at times. And, they're susceptible a little bit to getting hit around in the right circumstances. So, it's a great pitching matchup. But this will be really interesting to see because the Mariners can jump on Framber a little early, maybe get 2 or 3 runs on the board early in this game. That might dictate Logan Gilbert's game plan a little bit because obviously there's a lot of lefties in this lineup. Tucker, no Jordan, but Tucker, Carantini, Singleton, that like to hit the fastball. And so that splitter and the cutter are probably going to be really important. And, we've seen the cutter kind of, stay in the middle of the plate at times this second half. We've seen the splitter not quite have the same bite that it normally does at times this year. So it's really difficult to have a good feel for what Logan Gilbert's doing. Overall, he's been very good this year, but over the last handful of starts, it's kind of been this, up and down. He grinds it out. He gets through 5 or, he goes 7 scoreless. And, the one thing you do have to watch out for Logan, and this has been one of the most consistent parts of his game, is when he gets towards the end of his day, right? He's susceptible to leave pitches in the middle of the plate. And he's given up a lot of 2-3 run home runs to the last or second to last hitter that he's faced. And he's turned a lot of, 2-0 leads into 3-2 deficits or whatever. And obviously it would be great if the offense could score more than 2 or 3 runs when he's out there, but still at the end of the day, he did it against Kansas City. He did it. Who was his last? He gave up the 2-run homer. He had the complete game. St. Louis gave up the 2-run homer late to the second to last hitter he faced there. He's done this before where he's cruised and then a couple guys get on late. He's a little tired and he pipes one and it's usually a hanging breaking ball of some kind. And all of a sudden you're down 3-2. And in this ballpark with that ridiculous wall out and left and the short porch and right, you have to be very intentional with every single pitch. So hopefully Logan gets ahead. Hopefully he's given an early lead to work with. And I think the splitter and the cutter are going to be the 2 most important pitches for him tonight. Although the slider's been pretty darn good recently. Obviously there are lefties in this lineup, but Diaz and Altuve and Bregman, it's a pretty balanced lineup. So you're going to have everything working for you. So I think today will be more about the off speed than the fastball for Logan, and he has to be able to have command and control of all of those offerings. He's got to be special tonight is essentially what I'm looking for. Be big game Logan Gilbert that we've seen in the past, and give your team a legitimate shot. Give this offense a legitimate shot to work against, a decent bullpen and a guy who they have some track record of success against. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this goes. But Logan, it's about the off speed tonight, and he's got to be really, really sharp because he might only get to make 1 or 2 mistakes in this entire game, if that.
You need Walter tonight.
Yep.
Plain and simple. And like I said, it's been a weird second half for him since the All-Star break. I mean, he struck a lot of dudes out, 11.55 Ks per nine. I think that's second amongst all qualified starting pitchers since the All-Star break. 1.53 walks per nine, that's great. But then 4.18 ERA. Now, there is a 2.81 FIP that suggests maybe he's been a bit unlucky. But, you did mention the home run issues. 15.4% home run to fly ball rate. Right, that is 12th amongst all qualified starting pitchers since the All-Star break. So the home run's been a big issue for Logan. So he's got to keep the ball in the yard, and if he's able to do that, then I feel pretty good about his chances, given all the other numbers that I just listed.
Yeah.
But like I said, you need Walter tonight. So hopefully that's what you get, and if you do, then tomorrow could be pretty interesting, and we're gonna be doing a post game show after that one, potentially our last post game show of the year. Hopefully not. Hopefully they are able to find a way into the postseason. We're able to do at least a couple more post-game shows this year. But yeah, so catch us for that one after the game. That is going to do it for our show. But before we get out of here, a reminder that Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. For Colby Patnode, I'm Ty Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Ty Gonzalez and Colby at CPAT11. That's CPAT11. You can also find all that stuff in the description of this episode. Have yourself a beautiful baseball day, and we'll see you next time. Peace.